What is going on, guys? Benny here. We are here to talk today about this little guy, the new iFi Zen Dac V2, and see if it's any different from the first version and what they've changed. But let's check that out after the intro. What is going on, guys? So we're down below here looking at the iFi Zen Dac V2. So have they made any changes on the outside of this device? Not really, but they did make a couple things that I do believe I want to take credit for, because only a few of us reviewers actually said something about it. So on the front here, we do have the power match button, which is basically their high and low gain button. Then they have the true bass button, which actually adds some bass, and I'll talk about that up top a little bit more. On the front, we have the super smooth, super buttery smooth volume knob. We have the 1/4 inch unbalanced output, and then the 4x4 millimeter Pentacon output, which is balanced. So on the sides, top, basic logo, nothing crazy. Nothing on the sides, got some little black rubber feet. And then on the back, here we go. So we do have a actual balanced 4.4 Pentacon output, as well as next to it we have a fixed and variable switch. We are going to be using this for a actual pre-out or pre-amplifier or potentiometer, basically. Unbalanced right and left out, as well as the USB to USB-A, which this can also double as power, as well as just USB input. And then you do get external power if you are going to use the iFi power adapter, so then you can have a even lower noise floor from the not having the power and input change, basically crossover. So with that, just on the back, that is MQA certified, if you guys can see that. And then with that, basically with this unit, this one is substantially heavier than the original version 1. Reason being is because with this guy, they did make a few changes to it on the inside. So instead of this just being a MQA renderer, if you are listening to MQA through Tidal or even downloading CDs now, I believe they master them in MQA. Basically, this is a renderer, and also, I always forget this word, forgot it again. So this thing now is a renderer and a decoder. So basically, instead of your computer doing the decoding part of it and this just doing the render, this actually does both for you, which is kind of a good thing, especially if you don't have a crazy high-powered computer and you're going to be running this off, like, let's say, a phone. What else? Could be like an iPad or tablet, or even just a lower cost laptop or a Chromebook or anything like that. This will take over the decoding instead of using the processing power of that device. And then the other thing is from the original version, this guy actually had an 8 chip on here, and then now it has a 16 core chip on here. So being that it does that, that is the piece that helps this become a decoder as well. So let's go back up top, and then we can talk about how it sounds and how does it compare to the Zen Dac version 1. Alright guys, so I'm not going to read off the specifications for this guy. I'm going to throw it over the top here, and then you guys can read it yourselves. I'll also put a link down below to the page. So here it is, and check it out. These are the specs. Alright guys, so we are back up top to talk about this guy, obviously. We did talk about it a little bit below, what changes they made, a couple of things that they added. And you did just read some of the specifications, so not much has changed from the first one. But there are a couple things that I would like to credit myself and a couple other reviewers as well on something we complained about the first one. Nothing too big, something kind of small, but was these buttons. So with these buttons originally, they were really loose. There's a lot of space between the actual back of the button and then the front of the button, and that used to be really jiggly. It's kind of has a little bit now, you guys can hear that, but it's nowhere near as how the first one was. So they fixed that. Only a couple of us reviewers said something about it, so I'm going to credit myself for that. In terms of that, the buttery smooth volume knob still there, super smooth. I wish all volume knobs felt like this, but not many people appreciate this. I think it's also because first, iFi does a really good job on all of their potentiometers or volume knobs, and they're all pretty much this smooth. Why can't all companies do this? All companies, every single one, should be this smooth where you don't hear a darn thing when you turn it. So, this guy, the power match, same thing. It's basically a gain switch. So if you have it off, it's a little bit better for IEMs and higher sensitivity things. You push that button to turn the light on, and then it's better for high or lower sensitive things, so then it can shove more power into it. So one of the things that I did notice a little bit differently from the first one was the sound that true bass changed. So when I was testing this guy, I have some headphones that I didn't have when I had the first one. So when I had with this guy, I used my Sundaras, some Anandas, and then also some Arias, as well as I did have my Dakoni Blues that I did try with this, as well as some HE6 or what are those? The 6XXs. What I did notice though, even through the Sundaras, which when the true bass on the first one, it was very subtle when it came to pushing more lower frequencies into it, and it was very smooth through the range where it just felt like it was just enough oomph for the open back headphones, where it wasn't too much and it wasn't too little. And then what I noticed was, well, with the Sundaras inherently, they have better slam than the Anandas. The Arias are about just as good, if not a little bit more slam than the Sundaras, but a lot more tight than just amounts. So I think the Sundara, especially for the price point of this, is a better choice in terms of what to pair this with. So when it comes to that, when I put this on with the Sundaras, it was just way too much. Way too much. I felt like I was listening to I was becoming a bass head can again. Where it was just wow, all I want to listen to is bass, and that's kind of how it felt like in the Sundaras, at least. It did do that a little bit too much too with the 6XXs. But again, if you are a bass head and you have the Sundaras or the 6XXs, definitely something to behold, because this guy's I think only 160 right now, and you can find them as low as 130. So when it comes to that type of price point for this and having it be so clean, even with that Burr Brown DAC in there, this is kind of a no-brainer. So when I was listening to this, I also have the balanced cable as well now, because I didn't have that before, and I compared the two of these, and Balance kind of did what Balance does best in separation and more power, so, and better dynamics. So when it comes to that, it doesn't feel so scrunched up as well as it didn't feel, it felt like there was more space between the music, and also the dynamics. The dynamics are a lot better when it comes to the balance side of things. Anything balanced, the dynamics are just going to get better because you get more power, and then you get, it's balanced. So with that, basically what it does is it doesn't have to squish all of that into, basically the best way to put it is into one tube. It just does it into both and separates it properly. So then you get better separation, dynamics, blah, 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 etc., etc. So how does it sound compared to the old one? Honestly, even between the first version and this version, even though the other one was just a renderer and this one is a renderer and decoder, and it has more cores to be able to take over that decoding like ability, I really couldn't tell a difference. So what does that say? Did they not change anything? Is it basically just the same thing and a decoder? I don't like to say yes or no, only because when it comes down to this guy, it does have a little bit better of a use. Like what I said down below when you're looking at it, if you have a lesser power device that you're going to be running through USB into the back of this guy, it is good to have those extra 16 cores and more powerful processor, because then you're not going to have any timing issues or jitter when it's coming from the source, because it's all going to be calculated and put through this guy if you're listening to MQA. And if you're using Tidal or you're using downloaded files that are MQA as well, this will do all of that for you. If you have a lower device, I can see the reason to have this. What else about this guy? Yeah, it's a great buy. What I would say though is, if you already have a powerful computer and you have the original, no reason at all to get this guy, unless you have a really big issue with the clickety clackety buttons. Then you'd get this guy, just so then you get the silence. But again, no reason to upgrade if you have the first version. The first version's just as good, just with a couple features taken out. Yeah, so I would say iFi, again, they put out a banger of a product. They made those couple of changes, credit myself and some other reviewers as well. But yeah, this is, I would say, a good buy if you're just getting into audiophile gear. iFi is a very good company. They know their stuff. And then also with that, this price to performance ratio, there's a lot in this realm as well. So I would do a lot of research and see if this is for you. Again, MQA, if you're gonna listen to MQA specifically, this is really the only option you have, which kind of puts it in its own realm of things. Also with that, when it comes to MQA, it's a lossy format. Not lossless, it's a lossy format. So what I mean by that is it's either adding a layer or subtracting a layer. So basically when you're running MQA through this, it's running it as raw as the file can go. But again, it's a lossy format. So if you want the highest format of all highest formats, you'd be running DSD, TXD, anything at 352 kilohertz sample rate or higher, which is crazy to see that some of these DACs nowadays can run that high. But again, it all comes down to implementation. So with this, guys, for the Zen Dac version 2, I would give it a recommendation if you're getting into audiophile gear, or if you're using Tidal for MQA. So with that, guys, I will see you in the next review. and I hope it'll be soon. Good morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I'll see you guys in the next one.